Thank you everyone for joining, listening, tuning in. I'm Lucas Peterson. I'm a client technical specialist with IBM, joined here for a very exciting AI demonstration session with my good friend and colleague, Jim Esposto, and one of our top experts in Watson in the field in North America, Walt Perez. Very excited to have him joining today to walk us through a demonstration, which I think is really going to showcase natural language processing, AI, sort of state of the art, where we are with understanding complex financial documents that are used very often in legal departments, finance departments, and across the financial services sector. So a very exciting demo session. Jim, maybe I'll kick it over to you to introduce yourself quickly, and then we'll let Walt get started here.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Jim Esposto here. I'm also a technical specialist with IBM, covering Watson Analytics and AI. Happy to be here and excited for the presentation and the demo today. Pass it over to Walt.
All right, thanks guys. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. If you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and start with some demonstrations. All right, so I'm going to take you through a couple different use cases today, but primarily the same overarching concept which Lucas was mentioning, which is using natural language processing to derive insights from unstructured content that we could ingest with Watson Discovery. So the first example I'm just going to pop right into, as you see, this is the Watson Discovery tooling. I've got a couple collections set up here. I'm just going to pop into this IBM 10K, which I've got something like 120 documents that are listed in here. And you can see within this dashboard, I could do a couple of different things. I can go ahead and try it out. So you see, once I do that, it brings me into this try it out screen where I can run a number of different searches and really start to get into the data a little bit more that we've just ingested. The first thing that I wanted to really get into, of course, was taking advantage of some of the natural language processing and the ability to actually derive some of those insights from the data itself. So to do that, as often the case, each company typically has their own domain of content or domain terminology that they might be using. Watson does a great job right out of the box being able to identify insights by extracting things like entities, which are things like people, places, locations, quantities, things like that. But what happens when you actually want to start customizing that a little bit? Well, we give you the ability to really start to create these own kind of domain patterns. And we do that in a number of different ways. The first way I was going to show you really is by creating these dictionaries. So here I'm just going to create right within the tooling itself, leveraging Watson AI in the background. I'm going to give you a couple examples of how we can actually do that. So again, looking over this IBM or these IBM 10K documents, I'm going to do something like extract financial metrics. So in this example, I want to give it some terminology around, something like net income, maybe even some net loss. And it looks very manual at this point as to what I'm doing, starting to add these terms, but you notice off to the right-hand side, what ends up happening is, again, leveraging the Watson AI, is you see these suggested terms coming up. So very much like what I'm entering into the system, Discovery notices that there's similar terms based on its natural language processing that we could actually use to start adding to this dictionary. So there's some terms in here that I might like, these numbers I might not like, so I can actually X out of these things. I might put in other things like, just keep building this up and building it up. But you can see the process that's happening here is that these suggested terms really start to come back, and I can really build this all-inclusive term list, not even really being a subject matter expert in the data itself, but just really identifying the terms that are within the collection that I just ingested. So I can save this dictionary off, I'm going to go ahead and select the field to actually enrich, which is just the text field, and I can apply that in the background.
So Walt, let me
Then,
stop there for a second and ask a
yeah,
question.
go ahead.
So this dictionary, you're actually building a kind of selection of terms or collection of terms that it's searching your original document or finding in your original document, and then it can be applied to all the other documents that you load in?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I'll show you an example of this kind of once we go through some of these examples here of what that shows you on the flip side and how that can be used on the flip side. But you're exactly right. What I'm doing here is not only for the content that I have within the collection itself, but everything going forward will now be able to take advantage of these enrichments that are being placed on the data as well.
Yeah, very cool.
All right, cool. Let's keep going here. The second way that we could actually start to customize some enrichments, leveraging some AIs, and gaining a little bit more insight is actually using our improve and customize patterns. So you can see here that with patterns, using the same kind of concept, leveraging our conceptual awareness of the data in the background, I can actually use some of the content either suggested to me, or I can pick a few here. So in this case, I'm going to go for something like some financial measurements. So I'm just going to put in a couple seed terms here, like increase, and search across those documents. Oops, I'm actually using the wrong collection. Let me go use that one. Okay, so I'm going to select a few here, like page 3, page 4, 16, just some random ones in here. And then I might want to, put another term in here that I might be looking for decrease type things as well. So again, 14, 19, who knows, 18. So I'm just selecting a few documents here that I can actually use towards this pattern recognition type use case that allows me to, again, extract some more insights without being an actual subject matter expert, a coder, or even, a librarian of sorts. I can very easily use the tooling to start doing things like, okay, well, I want to start marking where all these increase percentages happen and the decrease percentages for these, we'll call them financial measurements.
I like the interface here as well as in the dictionary portion, right? It looks easy. Like I could do it. An analyst could do it, a line of business, someone who sits and used to manually have to read through financial documents to pull out these insights, right? It's not taking a data scientist, a machine learning engineer, or anything like that. And this interface just looks a lot more intuitive.
Right. So, and that's really the purpose here is we really just want to make it nice and easy for somebody to really be able to go in and start marking the content. So using that content that's already existing that we just ingested, and for everything else going forward, we can actually use these patterns that are starting to pop up. So as I started to mark, you see I've only marked about 3 of these so far, and already the AI is starting to return some interesting results based on the patterns that I've given it. So it's asking me, hey, on the right-hand side, do these other suggestions make sense? And this one happens to make sense. This one I might not like. Hey, there's an interesting one. Just by marking increases and decreases, it noticed that grew 2% with another one there. I might not like this one. This one seems great. And this one I might not like. And what we're doing here is really just giving it some examples as to where we can actually mark the content for these extractions that I want within the document that I can use to filter on the content as I search for interesting points later on. So again, same type of thing happening here. I'm just using the patterns, I'm using the suggestions. So what ends up happening on the back side, and I'm just going to switch over here to what ends up happening so you guys don't have to wait. On the back end side, once I've saved those away, what I can end up doing is start doing really some interesting searches across the 10K now. So instead of just blindly looking at the unstructured data as if it was just words and text, we've now got these insights, these customized insights that I can leverage, not only provided out of the box by Watson, but as you saw, 2 different customizations that were done there. So if I were to run something like a search like, I want to know the America's revenue across that IBM 10K documents, you can see what ends up coming back here is not only just results that I would normally get, but on the left-hand side, I've now got these financial metrics and financial measurements that I can now use to actually start filtering on the content a little bit. So if I were just to say, okay, I was interested in America's revenue, but it was the gross profit and where it decreased by 3%, which is the largest number I'm seeing in here. I've now gone within this content of 120 different documents right into the area of that document where I was talking about a % decrease on the gross profit across this document right here.
Yeah, very
So
cool.
really a nice way to be able to tell us how we can slice and dice the content using out of the box and customizations that are very easily input into the system itself. Okay, so one more example that I'd like to show you guys if we have time here is really going into, let me find this one, our ability to do these contracts. And in this case, I'm going to use some LIBOR agreements, which kind of seems like it's on the top of everybody's plate nowadays. So let me just find this collection here real quick.
Yeah, with
I have a lot of financial services clients that are interested in searching their existing contract base for ones that are based on LIBOR. So glad you brought this use case up.
yeah, this makes a lot of sense, right? It's a global metric that's phasing out all of these existing contracts that are based on this metric are going to need to be rewritten, changed out, right? And that's going to take somebody a long time to read through these documents, right? So with the help of AI, with reading them quicker, that manual process just gets sped up so much.
Right. And so in this case, I've just brought, as you can see, just about 5 documents, but each of these documents can literally be hundreds of pages long with the contracts themselves. So let's just give another example of what that might look like. So if I'm going to try this without really doing anything other than just having Watson Discovery ingest the content, I'm going to give you a sample search. We're just going to use something like Bank of America here. They happen to pop up in these documents. I really haven't done anything outside of the out-of-the-box enrichments on the content itself. So even with these out-of-the-box enrichments, you can see that I can start really starting to slice and dice the data, the unstructured comment in these PDF LIBOR contracts by company names, locations, quantities. So there is some amount of structure that I can actually gain just by ingesting it into Watson Discovery itself. The true power really starts to come out when we can again start to process these documents in a little different way. So again, here I'm just going to kind of show you the comparison, adding a little bit more customization. In this case, not to really get too technical here, but you can see that I've applied a few more enrichments to the data itself. So if I start going down here, you can actually start to see that I've applied parts of speech, something very interesting called table understanding, as well as some entities on here as well. And this really gets us to the next level of what we're trying to do. These are PDF LIBOR contracts that I've ingested. And as I start to show you now what it looks like with the additional enrichments running that same type of search, there's a few other things that end up happening to the data itself. So this time when I search for Bank of America, it'll look a little different off to the left-hand side. I've actually done 2 different customizations, although one really didn't do anything or didn't require anything other than checking a box. So that HTML enrichment and table understanding really brought me back something that's visually appealing now. And the fact that we're indexing these tables that are within the PDF document itself. So if I were to show you this first document here, you can see that this is a table within the PDF document. The great part of what's happening here is we're actually ingesting each cell value, column header, row value, and column value as its own individual piece of structured content within the document itself. So it really brings us to the next level of being able to understand not only concepts and natural language processing, but the real structure of the document as well. So I'm going to show you an example of what we can do with that here. So if in this case now that I was really just interested in searching for Bank of America within the table header of this document, you can see very quickly now that I've again gone down to one document. And within this contract, LIBOR contract, I've specifically found that under that bank header, there's the Bank of America value that's being brought back. So very specific in what we can bring back in identifying the data, even within structure tables within unstructured PDF documents themselves. The last thing that I'm really going to show you, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in showing you some of the detail, but another custom way of being able to understand the data a little bit more is if I had this pile of documents. In this case, I'm only showing you about 5 documents, but imagine if we had 100,000, a million, or 10 million of those documents. And I really didn't know what type of contracts that I was looking at. And within those LIBOR contracts, I can assume that there can be these technical and non-technical agreements and other type of agreements that might be sitting within either the shared file system that we have or the document database or cloud object storage, wherever you might have that data stored. What this is showing you now is that I can actually create some document classification just based off of the text of some of those sample documents, and then uploading that as a part of my classifications in my classifiers. You can see what happens here is then I can further filter the documents even more so to see that I might just only be interested in looking at particular searches over non-technical service agreements. And in this case, this is what we're getting to at this point. So I can search for Bank of America just in a non-technical service agreement. So it's another way of basically filtering the content based on natural language processing, and very easy to upload sample pieces of text or paragraphs that are specifying these different classes that I can then use for filtering in the background as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So in that example of, a million documents, you could be filtering down on, half of that or a quarter of those documents, so you're not searching unnecessarily across your whole collection of documentation.
Correct.
And then it learns for the next million of documents what are technical service agreements and non-technical just by the machine learning.
Exactly.
So it's all about speed, right? In this case, reducing the amount of time it takes to find that pertinent information in a massive amount of unstructured document data. That makes a lot of sense. I do, Walt, want to go back really quickly, just clarify one point that you said around what we're seeing here under the table extraction. Did I hear this right? It's a single button click. Watson's able to render tables, understand column headers, rows, cells out of the box?
That's correct. So really, we're just applying that as almost as an out-of-the-box annotation. So we're just specifying that before we go ahead and ingest the content. And it's allowing us to get this high-fidelity ingestion of the document itself, in this case, a PDF document, and get that table rendering. So I can really specifically search within the table itself. And it's not only doing that just for table renditions, it's getting high fidelity ingestion of the actual structure of the document too. So those H1 headers or, those kind of bolded titles. So for example, we have other use cases within financial services for customer care that you might want to pull out frequently asked questions, and the questions and the answers show clearly within the structure. Those are things that we can do very easily, literally with one click upon ingesting the content.
Very cool. It seems pretty state of the art in terms of Watson's AI natural language processing capability. A lot of out of the box components here. You've already shown us a few ways to customize that, teach Watson your domain, your business further than the out of the box models in really easy to use, easy to understand interface and language that doesn't take a technical audience. So really appreciate that, Walt.
Sure, no problem.
So I guess, Jim, any final comments here? Walt, thank you again so much. I think before we end today's session, I did look through IBM's reference material. Who's using this today? I've got a couple to share to end the call, but just wanted to get your final thoughts, Jim, there on Walt's presentation.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Walt. Very cool stuff.
Sure.
I can see this saving my clients a lot of time through their document classification and searching, especially for all of their LIBOR contracts. That's a use case that I'm going to take to my clients and share with them. So thanks for your time, Walt.
Sure, no problem, guys.
All right, guys. So final minutes here. Just want to share one or two customer references. Who's using this? What industry? How can you replicate their success? First one here around KPMG, actually embedding this process of Watson, understanding contracts, in this case, lease contracts with for their customers, right? So KPMG services a number of clients that are businesses themselves. They need to look within these lease contracts for information. And that's typically a manual process. After Watson was embedded in the solution, speeding up that process by 75%. So a lot of time savings there, a lot of cost savings. So I thought that was an interesting case that kind of fit into, how can Watson be used through this contract piece. Second one here is around a French bank, Credit Mutuel, right? And what they're doing, similar, Walt, to the original or the first piece that you showed, people needing to find insights like financial performance through their complex documents here. Credit Mutuel providing interfaces to their advisors, to their bankers, to find information within their knowledge repositories to help their end clients, right? People like you and me, people in France who bank with Credit Mutuel often have questions of their advisors. They get something like 350,000 emails a day from their customers asking questions about their accounts, about the products, and they're just able to help them so much quicker, so much more efficiently by leveraging the power of Watson. So I thought this was another nice use case that that showcased, the technology in action. The metric there, 60% faster service after implementing Watson. So wanted to share that with our listeners today. This is a technology that's been around a while. It's in production. It's being used in financial services all around the globe. And, if you're interested at all, if you have interest in how Watson can help your business, you're interested in the demo Walt provided, don't hesitate. Reach out to Jim, reach out to Walt, reach out to myself. We are happy to walk you through how this can help your business, save you money, and make you money. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks for your time today, guys.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Walt, and listeners, thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Reach out again if you need anything. Thanks.